Hello, and welcome to this mindfulness and meditation practices and experiences session. For this session, we're going to cover four different topics. So, we're going to talk about the attention economy and what it is, some of the impacts of it, the good news that's coming out of some of the latest science following mindfulness and meditation, meditation experiences, and developing, cultivating mindfulness. So let's take a look at the attention economy. So the term was first used back in 1997 when it was introduced by Wired magazine, who said that attention would be the currency of the new economy. So essentially that attention was now something of value. And then in 2001, Harvard Business Review came forth and said that understanding and managing attention in the new economy would be paramount to business success. As we all know, things have moved on vastly in the last 2 decades, and we're now surrounded and consumed by the attention economy. So what exactly is the attention economy? So it's those applications and the companies that are vying to grab our attention and then hold on to that attention for as long as possible. And an interesting comment that we see down the bottom from one of the psychology journals is the statement that says, cognition in the attention economy is typically fast, emotional, and targeted with distractions. Fast, emotional, and targeted with distractions. So that's the era that we're in. Let's look at the impacts of the attention economy. So primarily, there is this perpetual distraction that we have. So the notifications, social media, emails, people walking up to us, constant distractions, be it in our personal lives, be it while we're driving a car, be it whilst we're at work. We also have this mode of passive consumption, driven potentially by the fear of missing out, or FOMO, if you've heard of that. And so what that drives us to do is to try and passively scroll through all this endless content that's barraging us. And because the reason for that is because we don't want to miss out on something. We want to be able to not miss a conversation or miss something interesting that's happening. So we scroll through passively looking for the interesting articles, which then leads to an unhealthy relationship with our devices. So we're spending too much time with our devices. We're using them in the wrong places. We're being distracted by them. We have a toxic psychology around the device now, where things like social media, where we're looking at the number of likes that we've got, maybe we're looking at Instagram, maybe we're looking at the number of followers we've got and comparing it with other people and friends, etc., which is not healthy for our mental state. And then there's this notion of constant multitasking. So part of what the distraction is trying to do is to grab our attention. And then because we also feel like we're in a hurry to get things done, that the business world, that our home world, just life in general is faster paced than usual, we try and accommodate that by multitasking. And the science has already proven and shown that multitasking has many detrimental effects to our health and to our efficiency and well-being. We don't have time to go into that in this session today, but by all means, ping me or ask me about it later on if you are interested in some of that. And then finally, there's this notion of herd mentality that's coming through. So, and this is what we start to hear a little bit more about, where perhaps the communication that we're seeing, be it through formal media channels, maybe even through diplomatic tweets, etc., where we're getting a more aggressive communication coming through, people defending their herds and defending points of view, which we'll talk more about later. And so all in all, there are many impacts of modern society, and these are just a few. A quick example of attention, and where we're placing our attention. So if we have an example of Tom goes to work and he's busy working away, and then he suddenly starts thinking about his gig that night and catching up with the boys from the band, and doing that, and his mind wanders and drifts off. Then he gets to the band and he's doing his gig and he starts off strong, and then suddenly he starts to think about the weekend and what he will do with his family and how good that will be, and so his mind wanders again. And finally, when it gets to the weekend, finally he's with his family, and I think you know what's going to happen, but then Tom starts to think about work and what he's going to do on Monday, and so his mind drifts off again. Does this sound familiar to you at all? It certainly is familiar for many of us. And the purpose of raising this is just because in this attention economy and perpetual distraction, sometimes that can impact on the relationships we have around us and our impact in society as a whole. But there's some good news though. So neuroscience is finally catching up to what monks and other people have known for many several thousand years, and that is that mindfulness can improve our mental fitness and health in many ways. It has many benefits. First of which is that it improves our ability to focus, so our concentration and our intent or intentional attention, if you like. It also has dispelled a myth about the brain. So previously we thought that the brain wasn't malleable, so we thought the brain was fixed, it couldn't be exercised, and once we'd reached a point of late teens to early 20s, then the brain was pretty much your brain, and from there it was going to decline over your life, and that was it. Now we know from scientific studies that that's not the case, that through mindfulness and practice of meditation, you can improve many aspects of your brain and your mind. So it's like you're flexing a muscle, like you're at the gym. The third thing is about your memory. So you can increase your memory. You can actually increase the grey matter through doing meditation. And as I said, your overall mental healthness can improve. So rather than seeing a decline as you get older in things like your reaction time and in your memory and other facets of your brain, you can actually see, scientific studies have actually proven that you can actually see it go up and increase. So your reaction time reducing, your memory increasing. So there's some positive aspects that are coming out of some of those studies that are proving what, as I said, other people have known for some time. And then it can also alter the relationship to pain and to stress. And obviously with stress, any relationship that we can manage with respect to stress and reducing the effect of stress on our body is a positive thing. So that's the great news that science is catching up. And essentially, as you'd be aware, there is this global mindfulness push, or awareness, should I say. And to me, this is really about a new skill, a new life skill. Now, I know the practice isn't new, but people are becoming more aware of a requirement for it in today's modern era. I'll run through this just very, very briefly, because what I see as some of the components of this new skill is really just a creation of habit, staying connected with a group of like-minded people who are practicing and doing the practice itself. So maintaining the mindfulness practice, adjusting anything in your life that you might need to make some adjustment to plans, to schedules, to areas where you might want to do some of your mindfulness, just to arrange your life in such a way that it makes it easier to keep to the habit. And then the final point, and quite important point, is just about the compassionate living and how you choose to live a good life with tolerance and compassion. We'll talk more about that too. So moving on to meditation. So meditation is, we've talked about the theory of the practice. It's really about giving yourself loving kindness, giving those in your immediate vicinity loving kindness and compassion, and then expanding that out to a broader community, including anybody that might be your enemy, or somebody who you might feel ill of for some reason, because of something that's happened in the past, including all those people. So you're sending out loving kindness. Now, meditation and loving kindness is not something that I think is mandatory for today's modern era, and I'll talk more about that in a minute as to why. I came across meditation or loving kindness when I was doing a leadership program back in Australia many years ago, and to me, I didn't like it. To be honest, I didn't know the benefits of it, and I thought that it was soft. I thought it was showing weakness. I thought it was giving in to other people, and I wanted to be a leader who was successful. I wanted to be a leader who was high performing, and so I couldn't understand how having compassion and loving kindness, and certainly giving that to, say, an enemy, could remotely benefit me whatsoever. And at the time, I didn't have anybody who could actually explain that to me either. So I didn't actually do anything with it for some years. Let's talk a little bit more about experiences, and I'll just speak about my experiences only, so I can only talk about my experiences and what I've done. But just in terms of when to start, when to start practicing meditation, the clear and short answer is anytime. Start now. Start small if you want to, but start now with little expectation. And the reason I say that is because what you don't want to do is start meta mindfulness or loving kindness in the midst of a really bad situation. So if you've just had an event and somebody's really triggered you really badly, whilst it's good to count to 10 and to go away, and it's good to show them compassion and everything else, and by all means, I wouldn't sit down and start going into loving, start practicing, starting your meditation practice and kindness there at that moment. Because, and the reason for it is because it can feel very much I say very esoteric, so it can feel very much that you're just thinking this, and that you're trying to trick your heart, you're trying to trick your mind into giving loving kindness to somebody that maybe you have some pretty serious thoughts about, negative thoughts about, and so it can feel fake. And ideally, if you practice meditation, so you practice the meditation in your cultivation of it, then there are many, many benefits that will just naturally come through and flow. So to give you an example of an exercise that I used to do in Singapore on the train subway there, I wouldn't do it all the time, but from time to time when I got on the train, I would just very gently, with a soft gaze, just look around the train at the people on the train. And as I looked around very casually, very innocuously, I would observe my reaction to seeing the different people, because we all have biases. So some person I might look at, or I might make contact with, and I think, okay, they look successful. He looks like a great, clean businessman. I bet he's got lots of friends. I bet you he's doing well. Many, many assumptions will come straight through in thinking in our brain. And then as you look further, you will find somebody who may be less attractive, or you find somebody who maybe jumped on the train and barged through people and seemed a bit grumpy at the time. And so you observe their response to your bias, to your perception, and your the stereotype that your mind's throwing up at you. Having done that exercise and seen how your biases work and how you're responding, you then pause and think to yourself that every single individual on this train has at least one person that loves them. at least one friend, at least one person that loves them just as they are. Nothing required, no change required at all. Just they're enough. They're good enough. And likewise, you can assume too, and you should know that you are good enough as well. Nothing needs to change. So in that moment, I would send out loving kindness and metta to everybody on the train, and wish them well with whatever challenges that they're facing, because we never truly know what's happening in each and everybody's lives. So I found that an interesting exercise, both to practice compassion towards a random set of people that I don't know, but also to keep in check my biases and understand how I'm reacting in the present moment to sight senses and sight experiences as my eyes make contact with different individuals on the train, how I'm judging that. The third thing, with respect to results and experiences around compassion, where compassion truly does abound, and that is after practice on meditation and cultivation of that. What I've found, I was in a situation, and it was a particularly difficult situation with a couple of people that I would honestly say had ill intent for me, and I would say were my enemies. And I practiced before the event, because I knew that I would come in contact with them. I practiced before the event loving kindness every single day. I'm not sure for how long I did it, but basically I continued to practice that loving kindness. And what I found was that on the day when I came in contact with these people, I was extremely calm. I was extremely confident in who I am, and I felt no malice towards them at all. I greeted them like I would greet my best friend, without any trickery or without anything, like genuine feelings of compassion for these people, because whilst they're my enemies, they're going through a difficult time as well, and so they must be feeling some level of suffering also. So meditation can give you a sense of strength and a sense of confidence. It's not a weakness. You're not giving in to people and saying, okay, you can take this from me, or you can yell at me, and that's okay. Yell at me and all you want, like in bad situations, and I won't respond back, or I won't speak to you about that, or I won't address that. Right? It's not about weakness, but it is about being aware, being compassionate, and thinking about the right time to respond and how to respond in such a way that is both tolerant and compassionate, but gets the point across. That leads me to my fourth point on mindfulness meditation, and this is really around meaningful interactions. So meaningful interactions, dare I say it, with yourself, with those around you, so your family, so the people that you love and care about deeply, and the people in your broader community as well. Now, for me, meaningful interactions truly is with my wife and with my little son. And I can't speak highly enough about what tolerance and compassion and being present and mindful as a way of living can do for your own happiness and your own positive impact on the world and on other people. And so we can explore that a little bit more as we go through the practice and we take questions on that. But I feel personally that we're missing opportunities in this life that we have. We're missing opportunities to engage with tolerance and compassion with other people. And because of that, we're holding back, or we're suffering within ourselves. Maybe we're holding on to things like hatred that don't serve us well, and we're holding on to other things as well. So loving kindness really opens us up opens up our heart, and opens us up to being tolerant and compassion, while still being firm. It's still being maintaining your self-integrity, maintaining what it is that your precepts and your morals of what you believe is the right thing to do. Okay. So having covered that, let's talk a little bit about breath and mindfulness of breath. And this is a particularly detailed slide, so we'll spend some time on this. And there's 4 main areas I want to talk about. So the first one is the creation of the habit. So for those that are fairly new to this, just talk briefly about creation of the habit and what we need to do there. The next thing is just about intent. So the intention around mindfulness and the practice, and that's quite important. The third thing we're going to talk about is just how to maintain the practice and what you might experience as you maintain the practice ongoing, refining that practice. And then the fourth thing is really the outputs of the practice. So some of the experiences that you have and some of the observations that you might have. So if we talk about creation of the habit, so firstly you really want to have a regular practice. So ideally same time if you can, same place if you can, ideally the place clear and not cluttered if at all possible. And so yeah, and consistent. So the more consistency you can get for the first 20 to 30 days, the better. But if not, then don't beat yourself up. Be gentle with yourself. In terms of duration, so the duration of your practice, so what I would say is that do what you can. If you can do 15 minutes, then do 15 minutes. If you can sit down and spend an hour every morning, then great, do an hour every morning or every evening as you see fit. But do what you can, do sufficiently enough to create the habit and understand how that fits into your priorities and the rest of your life, and go from there. What you don't want to do, or my advice would be, is you don't want to set time challenges if at all possible. So if you start watching the clock while you're doing meditation, it can have disastrous effects on you, and it can make the meditation really tough, and you will probably not get all the benefits as a result of it. And most likely, more than often than not, you probably won't meet the time frame that you're talking to. So, having said that, we all need a guide. So we all, when we sit down, we have an intent to spend some time meditating. So we typically want to have something in mind as to, okay, I'm going to sit down and spend 15-20 minutes or thereabouts on meditation. I'll just do this, but don't set it as a crucible, something that you must conquer and sit for 5 hours straight, and that by 3 weeks time you'll be sitting endlessly in deep meditation, reaching some nirvanic state. Like the more you put time boundaries around things, the more difficult and tricky it can get for you. Then the other thing is what's right. So the other challenge that we have when we're starting any new skill is that we want to perfect it, and we want to know if what we're doing is correct or is what's right. So my advice again on this is listen to the practice and the methods you've been taught, but be relaxed and gentle with yourself as you do the practice. So you don't want to get too precise about what's right. As in this practice, and I guess my comment would be from my own experience with Buddhism in general, that the more you get precise about a specific word or intent, the more challenging it might be for you. And it's not really the intent. The intent is, as you say, middle path. So the final thing is just, again, this is my own personal view, is that hack is really just a trendy myth. So, the self-development books and videos and platforms and everything at the moment are providing all number and means of hacks towards success and performance and everything else. And while some of that might be okay and might be valid, my own personal view is that it just takes continued, repeated determination and practice over time to get the benefits, and so you need to stick with the process. Let's talk briefly about intent. So really what we want to do is, obviously, when we go to meditate, is just set the intention. So if we're breathing on breath, maybe our intention is just to focus breath, and that's it. Don't come in with expectations. So if you come in with expectations, I myself have come in with expectations, even on many occasions, even if I've known not to. I've brought expectations with me, and on every occasion I've brought an expectation with me, I've been disappointed. On the occasions that I haven't taken expectations in, and I've just gone in and done the practice and followed things through, I've had a couple of truly remarkable experiences for myself, and so you might be gifted. You might be given a gift in doing that. The other thing is just, your intent might be, be here now. So sometimes I find it helps just to say, okay, we want to just be in this moment, and just this moment. And we all know moments are just moments, and there's just this endless stream of moments, and each moment is different, and never be the same again. So just knowing that and understanding that when you're meditating, even if it's on breath, sometimes it's sitting there and just like this moment in, out, and just focusing on this exact moment, and that's it. So sometimes the intention might be as simple as that. Beginner's mind. So ideally, what we want, ideally, if we can, is to open up our minds. Certainly for me, I've had many years of cultivating logic and in a business world, and so I'm a thinking person, and I tend to overthink many things. So my heart logic is not so strong, and it's something that I have to work on. So opening up your heart, opening up your mind to be flexible, to be curious, to be inquisitive, and having a beginner's mindset is certainly helpful. Now, having said that, if you are like me, or you're like me maybe a year or two ago, and your heart's very closed right now because you're going through whatever, or you're just used to being very logic-minded and not used to opening up so much, even to yourself, then I'd say give it time and be gentle with yourself. Don't force that as your intent as you go into a meditation, or you'll just you'll start to try, and you'll think you're tricking your mind, and you can't. So it's not about thinking and tricking your mind into something else. But yeah, beginner's mind can be good. Use of a mantra can be useful. So when I've been on retreats before and we're sitting for a long time, and I observe the rising of pain in my body, and pain sensations in my body, then I may use a mantra. And the mantra that was taught to me was, the mind knows, the body doesn't know. So the mind knows reality and what is in this current moment. The body, well, not so much. It doesn't know reality in a sense, and that's why sometimes we get pain popping up when really there's no threat to our existence or threat to that area of the body. So pain is just a body reaction. So sometimes the use of a mantra like that, the mind knows, the body doesn't know, allows you to sit through the pain and just observe the pain, because the pain will come and go in different areas, and then maybe after some time, maybe the pain will disappear altogether, and you won't feel the pain, which when you experience it is an amazing thing, because you haven't moved your position, and you've just sat there longer, and suddenly you're feeling in a higher lightened state, and so that can happen. I'm not suggesting that you should aim for that. I'm not suggesting you should push for that, and certainly not suggesting you should push your body to a point where you torture yourself. If something's too painful, then shift position by all means. Nothing gained by massive torture, but observing pain and the rising and falling of pain is helpful. So let's talk about maintaining the practice. So we've talked about expanding the practice to daily life. So So that's certainly a must in my view. That once you've got the concept of awareness, or if you've already got the concept of awareness, and you may already be practicing in your daily life. And what I mean by that is simple things. So I'll refer to it in a business sense. So if you're walking between a meeting, you might just be aware and know that you're walking, and know that you're breathing, following your breath, following your footsteps as you walk. Now, you're very present and aware, so it's not like you think about your footsteps to the point that you run into the person in front of you, right? That's clearly not awareness. So what you want to be doing is just being very relaxed and just following your breath in and out, looking at your emotions, knowing that you're walking to your next meeting or walking to get lunch. Same thing if you're in a queue. So if you've ever been in a queue, and maybe it's a long queue and you have to wait, just follow your breath, follow your emotions, and see the rising and falling of emotion. Maybe you might get some frustration arising because you really, why are you having to wait? Oh my gosh, So practicing that, following your breath or following your emotions, and that awareness in your daily life is a very, very useful method and experience, which I recommend to you. You'll get all sorts of insights. And then persistence and trust in the process. So as I said, you have to do the work. You've got to do the practice and continued practice and meditation. There's the reading about it's not going to give you the answers. Only you can sit down and get your insights and get your practices and your learnings. And if anything, this to me has been one of the most challenging things as a Westerner that I've found with the practice, is that you can be taught the practice, and then you practice for a while, and then you might speak to one of your inner circle about what you're doing or what you should do, and the feedback you get might be only you can tell, like you need to keep practicing and follow the practice, and you'll get more back and more out of it. And at times, over time, that can be a challenge, because you may not see the gains that you're getting, and it may not be completely obvious to you, and at times it can be a little bit frustrating, because as a Westerner, you want to see an answer. You want to watch a YouTube session, or you want to read a book and then be an expert. And if you're committing your precious time to something like this, then you want to see the result. And so what I say is trust in the process. So through the highs of you gaining lots of knowledge and lots of insights and great practice, to the lows of a difficult practice, or maybe even losing faith in the practice, what I would say to you is to trust in the process. Just continue to reiterate the trust in the process and keep coming gently back to it, and you will find that over time you will gain increasingly more insights. Lasting benefits. So difficult to explain, but and we'll talk more about experiences in a minute, but there are many different benefits to the practice, so and different insights that you'll get. Some of these at the end of a retreat can be something that will come to you and then will fade away, and then other times there'll be lasting benefits that you take with you because of the practice, and you're practicing daily, and you become more aware of yourself, and you develop a stronger power of mind, and so you're able to deal with things better over time. So some of it's lasting, some of it moves around. And then reducing the speculative mind. So we talked a little bit about speculative mind before, I think, and ideally, as you're practicing and maintaining, you're seeing your true nature, and perhaps reacting a little bit less to situations that arise very quickly, that might catch you off guard, or even tendencies that you have that you may not have been aware of. Over time, you'll start to capture those before you go into speculation. So before you have a thought of fear, and then you have a fear of the fear, and then away you go. It can spiral out of control. So the practice will help you to reduce that speculative mind, and then maintaining mindfulness buddies. So just your support network. Doesn't need to be many people, but just a couple of people that are in that network and who are practicing, that you can talk to about the practice and keep you motivated and keep you connected. So from an experience perspective, we talked about not having expectations. That's super important. Reason for that is that your experience will be different potentially every time, right? And sometimes even the experiences that you have, like if you have a truly amazing experience, then that can be incredible. And then subsequent meditations that you do, you may desire to have that same experience again, and it just doesn't happen. So understand that it can be different. Understand that you don't want to have expectations and to take those with you, because if you do, sometimes that can automatically have detriment to your practice before you even sit down or start doing the walking meditation. So opening doorways. So I've had an experience where I definitely had energy doorways opened up on me. It was phenomenal. I didn't know it at the time, but subsequently after the retreat that I went on, I went back home, and certain things that I did, my energy flow through my body was just phenomenal. And so again, that lasted for a while, or maybe a few months, and then subsided away. And so going back to a retreat would potentially maybe get an opportunity to bolster that again. But you can open up doorways. Insights is the big thing though. So I've learnt more in the last 4 years than I have certainly in the 40 years before that. And that is all through seeing myself. So through having awareness. Now I'm not necessarily, I won't confess, I'm not at a point where and I never will be at a point where I'm a perfect individual by any means. So sometimes now I will see something rise, I'll see anger rise, and I'll see my reaction to it, or I will react to it, and then I'll go and I'll do something, and then I'll look back on that event and go, hold on, that reaction that I had was actually a conditioned response. So what I mean by that is I realized that my anger was actually deflection of something else. So it actually was as a result of some other conditioning that I have within me. And so then I have to look at that, actually the root of that condition. I need to understand why and work on that. So you'll gain insights through your practice, and as you expand that out through your day and you see yourself reacting to things, you'll gain further insights. Also insights into the being of your body and into reality itself. So you'll gain insights into those things too. Moving forwards and moving back, I just wanted to highlight the fact that sometimes you can feel, I would say I have a term for it, I feel connected with the practice. I feel connected with Buddhism as a whole. I feel very passionate about it. And then other times I feel like disconnected. And it's very difficult for me to explain, but it's a bit like, as I said before, when you learn new skills and you're developing the skills, sometimes it's hard to see your improvement. Sometimes it's hard to know that what you're doing, you're committing this time to doing this exercise, that you're getting the results and you're getting the learnings, and your interactions with others are becoming more substantial, more meaningful, more whatever it is that you're seeking in that manner. So sometimes moving forward, sometimes moving back, I would say. So if and the other thing to watch too, just while I'm at it, and again, this is just my experience, so you may not experience this at all, and I hope you don't. But like when we talk about impermanence, and we talk about non-self, and we talk about the rising and falling of everything, if you're not careful, if you're practicing and you're doing everything right, and you don't feel like you're getting somewhere, but you also, there's this rising sense of, what's the point? And maybe not what's the point of the practice, but what's the point of all of this? And so you be careful, because if you get to that point, it's like a dullness. And it's not. For me, it wasn't a depression. and was not depressed at all at the time, but it's a dullness. You start to look at things and look at the insights of things and the rising and falling and the nature and the death and everything else, and I say, okay, well then what's the point? so, so, so what I would say is, if you find that that's a recurring thing for you, then definitely make sure you're connected. Make sure you're having conversations with people about this, right? And talking about different areas, and talking about what it is that you're doing, talking about where that dullness might be coming from. So yeah, I wouldn't say be watchful of it. It may be unique just to me, and I hope it is. No pain, no breath. So like I said before, you can have a different relationship with pain, and as a result of these experiences, pain can drop away, rise and fall, and so can your breath. Like, your breath can get to a point where it almost completely disappears, and because it's so faint. And I guess the point is that's a practice, so just be comfortable with that. And if you're focusing on breathing in and breathing out, and your breath gets so soft and floaty and slow, then that's fantastic. Just keep going. Don't be concerned. You still have breath. You still, listen. You're still doing the practice. All beneficial to you. And then finally, this one, are you your best friend? Is something that I picked up from the U.S. Navy SEAL training that I was doing in California, or ex-US Navy SEAL training that I was doing in California recently as a retreat we had there. And they did an example of an exercise where we took two individuals, and one individual, we got them to do an exercise, and unbeknown to this individual, the whole team of people around them yelled abuse at them. And it was not nice. It was very difficult for us to do. For this person, we got them to do this physical exercise, like squats, up and down, up and down, up and down, and he had to do as many squats as he could in like 2 minutes, and he knew that he was competing against the other person, right? So we did that, and we all, the squats started, and we all kind of abused the guy, and then we finished, and we're like, hey, good job, finished. Then we bring the next guy in, and we knew what the drill was. He didn't know what the drill was, and he does squats as well for 2 minutes, and we're cheering him on, hey, go, 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 go. And then everybody started to get down and do squats with him as well. So it became kind of out of control, this energy and this positive flow. And at the end, and then we stopped. And at the end, when we stopped, we obviously hugged both the guys, and we said, we explained to those two guys what was going on. And the Navy SEAL, ex-Navy SEAL guy at the time, he said, look at what just happened in front of you. We had one guy who struggled to get through the squats, a guy that was getting abused who struggled to get through the squats, and the other guy was being cheered on, like home team, like, hey, and away he goes. He found it very easy. He goes, that's okay, like that's people external saying things to us, and internally, and we're fighting against her. He said, what if that was your inner dialogue? How difficult would you be making your life if your inner dialogue was like that? And so I raise this because one of the things with mindfulness practice I find is that it uncovers very quickly. You become aware of your inner dialogue, and with gentleness and compassion for yourself, you will get to see that dialogue, and that dialogue will change over time. As it develops, and so are you your best friend? Because you truly, in this world today, you of all people must be your best friend, and you of all people are truly enough. And so I'll leave that thought with you as an example of an experience, a very meaningful experience and powerful experience that I had, and I'll pass it on to you, and invite you to have a think about that. Okay, we're run out of time, so we're over 40 minutes now, and I've got a couple more things to say just quickly. So just to try and summarize what we've been talking about, and why we're doing this meditation practice, and what might be one of the things that would be useful to achieve, and that is really strong power of mind. So as we do meditation, we're cultivating our ability to concentrate, so concentrate on breath. and we're also cultivating our awareness, so being present in the current moment. So those two things together really form what we would say is power of mind, and our power of mind is something that we build and develop through the practice. And the intention is always, and ideally, that our power of mind is always stronger and more powerful than the fear event or the anxiety event or the delusion event that's coming, that arises, right? If it is, then we can go through life gracefully and easily. If it's not, then we, even through practice and meditation, we can observe the rising fear, and even though it feels overwhelming for us, we can know that it's fear, we can know that it's delusion, and we can know that it's anxiety, and we also know that it will disappear eventually, if we don't hold on to it. And so the idea of this practice is just to keep building that power of mind, because power of mind is just such a powerful thing. We are trying to, you can see conditioned thinking there. We are trying to break down, certainly from my perspective, a Western perspective, we're trying to break down that logic and that thinking. We always go to logic as our first point of call. We go to study, we go to books online, we go to YouTube, we go to anything, trying to get logic to get the answers. And ideally what we want to be able to do is to just look inside and look around us and get awareness and into our heart, mind, and into the present moment and the reality of consciousness itself. So that's what essentially what we're trying to do. The other thing too is there is this thing around when we build power of mind and we have the awareness and we are able to concentrate, that we will be more like the individual or the lady on the right hand side here instead of the poor guy on the left hand side, which is pulling his hair out as he's trying to get through a pile of work, and the lady on the right is just able to execute task upon task in a seemingly light manner. And I have seen evidence of that in my experiences as well. So bringing this all together, you can see we have our internal practices or our inner domain, which is around our mindfulness practice. So focusing on our metta meditation, our vipassana meditation, and things like walking meditation. When we expand that out, when we look at how we want to have impact on those in our immediate circle, so our family, our close friends, then we want to be applying that to our daily life, and every interaction that we're having, just understanding that we're doing it in a tolerant, compassionate way with power of mind and awareness. Then expanding that out even further through the service that we do to the community, the groups you're in, the tribe, however you want to look at that. We then look at how we can use this power of mind to the benefit and the service of others as well. And in effect, we're bringing about the change through these foundational practices and through refinement of these practices and the subsequent interactions and engagements that we're having with people. Okay, well, that about wraps it up. So appreciate your time and the dialogue that we've had on meditation experiences and some of the learnings and key takeaways. I do hope that you get something from this session, and wish you well.